So for the dirt and dust node demo, I decided to just create a little diorama here. I basically took the rocks that we had in our height blend tutorial video and just integrated into this and added a little dirt underneath. And then we used a frame from the curve node and we just made a little sandbox here to better show you guys the power of the dirt node. So I also decided to make a little albedo really quickly with just some gradients and just masking through the colors. But from here, one of my favorite things to do when I'm creating an albedo is actually add that kind of sense of realism, almost that layer of like dust, dirt, and grime that you'd see on a surface in the real world. So to do that, we actually can bring up the dust or dirt node by either typing in dirt or dust. And we're actually going to have quite a few different options here. So the first one I want to cover is the dirt node. So right from the get-go, we have a few options to plug in, and the actual more maps you plug in, the better result you're going to get with your mask. So what I like to do is we can either create some new nodes of the ambient occlusion, the normal, or we can actually just plug in the things that we already have. So what I like to do is just plug in what we already have. So we're going to plug in the world space into the world space. We're going to plug in the ambient into the ambient. And one map I like using for the dirt node is actually a curvature input. So what we can do is actually just press spacebar and then type in curve node, curvature smooth. We can plug in our normal map into this. And instantly we're going to get some kind of shading error. I'm not entirely sure what causes this, but an easy fix is to go to the tiling mode and just set it to absolute. You don't have to change the tiling mode, but just changing it to absolute fixes that shading error. And from here, we're working in OpenGL. So we're going to move this to OpenGL. And now we have a nice curvature smooth map that we can input into our dirt node. So here you're going to see the result that we're getting. What I like to do with this is almost use it as a mask. So what I can do is bring almost maybe like a dirt color, possibly maybe. Let's just start with an orange so you guys can see what'll happen. We're going to do a blend to our final albedo that we have so far. And do that as a background. We're going to choose our new kind of what we want to be dirt. I just use a uniform color, but eventually I'll probably end up using a gradient map to make a more detailed albedo for the dirt. We're going to plug this into the opacity, and instantly we're going to get some sort of result that almost looks like a dirt layer over your entire albedo. So we're just going to plug this in here. And there you go. The cool thing about the dirt node is that we have a bunch of different sliders that we can mess with. We have the dirt level, dirt contrast, the grunge amount. So we can actually start bringing the dirt level in a little bit. We can bump up the contrast if we'd like. We can bring up the grunge, and then we can. I like to actually mess with the grunge and the dirt level simultaneously because it's kind of gives you some push and pull on this. So as you can see, what's happening, the dirt is actually collecting in the crevices that you would inside of in the AO map. So like in these like large kind of indents, we see the dirt kind of accumulating in there. So it's like almost like having actual dirt on the surface from a top down. So let's actually go back into our color for the dirt. And from here, we can start really refining what color we want our dirt. We can make it a little darker. We can also, even if we wanted to go crazy, we can do some interesting things. Like we can add a green if possibly we can make this work for a moss if we wanted to. But I'm just going to go with like maybe a lighter dirt here. So let's go back into the mask. Let's actually bring down the contrast. Cool. It gives us like a little, it almost feels like the materials has been grounded a little bit. It's kind of has some nice shadows due to the dirt accumulating around the edges. So I think it really pushes your albedo to that extra level that it needs. So if you want to see the before and after, we can actually just take this input And you'll see it goes from it's almost like a flat surface, and then we get some nice detail and some grounding within the pebbles themselves. So the next one that I want to talk about is the dust node, and it's in the same vein as a dirt node, but the dust is almost as if this dirt was inverted. So instead of being in the crevices, it's going to be on the outer edges of your material. So I'll just show you what happens here. So again, we can do the same thing. We'll be able to plug in the ambient, the world space. This one, you don't actually need a curvature for this one. So we can just plug and play from here. So I'm actually going to disconnect this dirt and just plug in this dust. And from here, let me just make this something really obvious. Take this dust. And we're going to start messing with the levels, contrast, occlusion amount. So as you can see, not only are we getting some subtle accumulation between the rocks, but it's also actually coming to the top areas of the rocks as well. So even here, it's not only getting in the crevices, but you'll notice that it's actually coming in on these solid like blank surfaces. So each one gives you a different result. I like to plug and play with each one of these to see which one gives me the better result when I'm creating an albedo map. I think for this one, I'm going to go with the dirt. So if we just bring this back down to like nice subtle brown, cool. And there we go. So that's kind of how I like to use the dirt and dust node. It's a really nice way to have some nice overlay of grunge or whatever you want to use these masks for. Next up, I'd like to talk about the shape mapper node.